Hey, what's up, y'all? Classic Kev back with another episode. Y'all, honestly, it's probably the most important episode yet because on today's episode, I got a good friend of mine, the author of Undressing Bitcoin, Miss Layah Heilpern. Layah, how are you doing today?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. I had no idea that you had my book. Maybe I missed that, but I'm so glad that you got it. Thank you so much for the support.
Of course, always. So, Layah, let's just get right into it. Bitcoin, obviously, right now trading around 16,000, still trading kind of sideways. Some TA is saying that the bottom is in. Some say we're nowhere near bottom. What do you think?
Okay, so I like to look at history, and history tells us that we can expect around an 80% pullback, like we saw in the previous bull market. 20,000 down to 3,000, so that would take us to around 13,600. I think it's totally possible that we see 13,600. I think it really just depends on what happens now. There are so many black swan events, and all these things are going to push the price even lower. A lot of people think that 17,000 was the bottom, but obviously we have another black swan event with FTX, and that's going to push us even lower. And so I think that's totally likely. I definitely think $12,000 is likely. I'm just going by previous history, and also just by looking at how temperamental the market is right now. There's a lot of lack of confidence in the crypto space in general. In terms of the geopolitical situation that's getting worse, inflation, wars, all these different things are really going to affect the market. So we're heavily in a bear market right now, and I see no reason why we can't go lower. I think that the bottom would be at around $12,000.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you there. I guess what my thoughts would be like if we do test that range that, anywhere from 10 to 13,000 is kind of where I see it going. If we do test that range, how long do you think we'll be there? Because I think back to during the pandemic when we hit that 3,000 range, and I don't think we were there that long, were we?
Yeah, exactly. The last bull market, the last bear market, we bottomed at around 3,000, but throughout that whole bear market, we did slowly rise. And I think that's going to be the same thing. I don't think we're going to be sitting at, let's say, 12K for the next 2.5 years at all. I don't think that at all. But I think, we might hit 12K, and then bottom at around, kind of move sideways for a while, for like 6 to 9 months, anywhere between 12 to 15,000, 16,000. We could just be moving sideways for the next 6 months.
Yeah, I could see that. You mentioned Black Swan events. So I guess with seeing the whole FTX situation, which conveniently, when the FTX situations happen, now there's a lot of talk around the CBDCs, the central bank digital currencies. Could you kind of give us your thoughts on, for one, the difference of a CBDC versus Bitcoin, and what world does Bitcoin exist with these CBDCs at the same time?
Yeah, it's a great question because central bank digital currencies are coming. I think around 90% of all central banks are currently working on a central bank digital currency. So making that distinction between Bitcoin and CBDCs are really important. The most important part is centralization versus decentralization. So Bitcoin, of course, is in fact entirely decentralized. It's not in the control of any one CEO, one founder, one council, one individual. A central bank digital currency obviously is issued by the central bank and can be programmed to be used in a way that the central bank and the government wish. So right now we're seeing a lot of political agendas, a lot of woke agendas being pushed on us. And the best way to enforce these policies really is through the money, because money is the center of life. It's the fuel which facilitates everything that we do. And so if you control the money, then you can, in fact, control the people. Even at the World Economic Forum, they're talking about implementing a carbon allowance. So how do you do that? How do you make sure that people actually stick to the carbon allowance that, the kings and queens, the powers that be, tell us we must stick to? You just program the money. So once you have a central bank digital currency, you program it so that there's a limit. So if, Kev, you go to fill up your car, you're with a CBDC, your money could get declined simply because you bought too many plane tickets last month. Oh, and you bought too many burgers and sausages for that barbecue that you had, and meat is supposedly bad for the environment. So all these sorts of things means that when you go to fill up your car, it gets declined. Now, my issue with central bank digital currencies is that I understand that there's always benefits to technology, but the tyrannical nature of a central bank digital currency is so serious that it cannot be overlooked. in America, I know that the Second Amendment is a very touchy subject, and there are people that want to revoke it. And so so instead of having to actually like revoke the Second Amendment, you can just program the money so that people can't go and buy guns with it. So there's a lot of dangerous loopholes here, and even those of the World Economic Forum understand the dangers of a central bank digital currency. I believe earlier this year in Davos, they were talking about it. And somebody actually brought up the fact that if they were to implement it, you would need some kind of bill of rights to ensure that people's rights aren't impinged on. Now, this doesn't fulfill me with much hope, simply because, of course, we had the Nuremberg Code, which said you can't force people to take medicines and things like that. Yeah, and we'll call it magic medicines. We had the Nuremberg Code. But when it came down to the last 2 years, that was thrown out the window and they went against it. Right. And so no matter what kind of like regulations are in place to prevent tyrannical behaviors, under the guise of we're doing this to protect you, those will be revoked. They just implement those emergency powers and it will be revoked. So I'm very against central bank digital currencies.
Oh, yeah, I agree 100%, Layah. And, you brought up the World Economic Forum. What I found interesting was that, World Economic Forum was a stated partner of FTX. And what is strange with our mainstream media right now is the distinction between FTX is not Bitcoin. So could you kind of break that down of the difference between what FTX is and what Bitcoin is? Because people seem to be conflating the two.
Yeah, so FTX is simply just a cryptocurrency exchange, or was pretending to be a cryptocurrency exchange. So, you deposit money with them and then you can then buy many different cryptocurrencies. Bitcoin is the currency. Bitcoin is completely decentralized. There's no CEO, there's no founder, and it's not programmable. Nobody can run off with all your money. It's very simple. The thing with FTX is so fascinating because it's the media and the way that they're portraying the whole situation, which I find honestly just disgusting. They're portraying FTX as this, or Sam Bankman-Fried as this do-gooder, this individual who, he worked so hard to make the world a better place, but he didn't quite get to the finish line. It's unbelievable. They're making him like a martyr, a martyr and a victim of his own grace and his own generosity. And no, the guy is a fraud. He stole billions of dollars from the average person. And, in the bankruptcy filings, we learned that all the money that was deposited into FTX was just put into one pot. All customer funds were put into one pot. That one pot was then used to do whatever they wanted with it, whether it's to make a fake coin and manipulate the price and then take a loan out against it, whether it's to pay off politicians, pay off media, buy real estate, personal real estate for their family, all these sorts of things. So, and then also they didn't even have an accountant. And so I'm at a point with this where I'm like, you know what? This wasn't even a legitimate cryptocurrency exchange that just like made a mistake or got a bit too greedy. No. In my opinion, it was just a mask. It was a mask. That's all it was. It was literally a facade in order to steal money from the average person. And I also believe that the establishment was very much involved in all of this. FTX working very closely with regulators over the last year. Are we supposed to understand that Sam Bankman-Fried was working very closely with the SEC, the chairman of the SEC, Gary Gensler, and Gary Gensler had no idea that this was a fake company? Are we supposed to understand that? All these puff pieces that the media are currently doing right now, that the whole thing is truly shocking and it's embarrassing. And actually, I feel like the establishment are probably just shooting themselves in the foot because they are losing credibility rapidly.
Yeah, I agree. And it seems that what has shielded Sam Bankman-Fried and FTX from any mainstream media is this new term. That's a new term to me, this effective altruism. So that seems to be the almost cult-like religion that Sam followed, this effective altruism, which is how he made all his business decisions, apparently. In your opinion, like what is the definition of effective altruism?
So it's also a new term that I've recently come across. I was actually talking about this with some people at Thanksgiving lunch yesterday. And from what I understand, effective altruism is, just make as much money and do whatever you want, because ultimately you're going to be giving back. And so it's a bit like utilitarianism. It's the greatest good in the end. It's, make as much money so you can give back and do good. My issue with that is it's very the ethics of that is teleological. So I studied ethics, and you have deontological ethics and teleological ethics. The difference is deontological focuses on the means to get to the end. Teleological focuses on the ends. So under the teleological philosophy, it's okay, well, even if the means are bad, it doesn't matter because the ends are good, and the ends is all that matters. Deontological ethics is, if the means are bad, then that's it. It doesn't matter how good the ends are. If the means to getting there is evil and it's bad, then it's not good. And that's my mindset. I believe that the ends never justify the means. So no matter how good the outcome is, the ends, it does not justify the means. And so I think EA is the biggest load of rubbish. I also believe it's the biggest load of rubbish because humans are inherently selfish. I'm a pretty nice person, and I feel like I'm as nice as it gets. And anybody pretending to be any nicer than me, I'm like, you're a liar, because I'm a very honest person. Humans are inherently selfish. We are hardwired for survival purposes. And so if you go against those natural instincts too much, it's fake and it's a red flag. It's very simple. It's when somebody comes and speaks to me and wants to be super friendly with me, I'm like, okay, you're fake. What do
There's got to be a catch. There's got to be, what's your angle?
Right. You want something from me. And from a business standpoint, like, that's fine, but let's just be honest about the situation. And so when people talk about doing good for humanity, it's really the biggest load of rubbish. Because that's not how humans are built. And it's done because people have a savior complex. Or they're just greedy. I saw Andrew Tate talk about Sam Bankman-Fried, actually, and Andrew said, anybody who's that rich and doesn't buy luxurious things and doesn't indulge in their richness.
The luxurious things he bought. Like, he had a $40 million penthouse, which I wonder what the carbon footprint on that penthouse was. But like you said, it's okay because he subscribes to effective altruism, so he can have a $40 million penthouse. You cannot have that.
Right, exactly. But he wasn't, like, he was driving a Corolla, right? And like he was wearing like tatty clothes and whatever. So Andrew says, if somebody is that rich and doesn't indulge in that, then that's a red flag, because what it means is you feel the need to hold on to all that wealth. That's a certain level of greed, which is very, very dangerous. Like, the more money I make, I tend to like buy a little extra things, and buy a little bit of this, buy a little bit of that, because, because I'm normal, right?
Well, it stimulates the economy too. When you have wealth and abundance and you're spending it, at restaurants and small businesses, it is stimulating the economy.
Yeah, exactly. But I think, like, just the idea that somebody wants to desperately hold on to their wealth and refuses to indulge in anything is a huge red flag. It shows a level of greed, which is very dangerous.
Now, it's been reported that Sam's actually going to be speaking at a book signing in New York. So is he actually going to be there? Are you hearing anything? Is this going to be a virtual thing? Is it going to be another puff piece? And will we see justice? Do you think Sam, any chance he goes to jail?
I don't think he's going to jail. I really don't. I think he's highly protected by the establishment, because I think he was a puppet of the establishment. The minute he starts to speak out, then perhaps, he could suddenly disappear, supposedly kill himself or something.
Get Epsteined.
Exactly, get Epsteined. So no, I don't necessarily think that he's going to see justice. And I am hearing that he's going to be at this New York Times conference. I think it's disgusting. I think it's shocking. This is a man that has just stolen billions of dollars. And I saw Andrew Sorkin, he obviously works there. He tweeted something like, this is in the interest of journalism and truth. And it really, again, it's rubbish, because the New York Times haven't even accurately reported what's happened. So don't talk to me about this is in the interest of justice and truth. If it was in the interest of justice and truth, you would write an article about the facts. You wouldn't have a headline which said how this billionaire's crypto empire collapsed. Poor him. It's unbelievable. And again, the mainstream media are rapidly losing credibility the more they push forward with this rubbish.
Yeah, and they've lost. Yeah, I've seen some of the pieces. I believe they talked about his girlfriend that she's a big Harry Potter fan. Like that has any
Yeah.
relevance to any of this. So
Mm.
I don't know, Leigh. I think I might disagree with you there. I think that we will see justice. I think
Okay.
that because of people like you and crypto Twitter for exposing this, I think we will see. Now, what I want to ask you about next is you talked about black swan events, and there's been some rumblings that, do you think it's possible that Coinbase could go under as one of the dominoes falling from this FTX saga? Because that would be a black swan event if I've ever saw one.
Yeah, that would be the blackest of black swan events. I'm gonna say no, just because of how long they've been around, their credibility in the space. They have to some extent stood the test of time. But again, don't quote me on that. I still don't recommend people leaving money on centralized exchanges. I personally don't use Coinbase, not because I have anything against Coinbase, but I just don't leave money on centralized exchanges. But then again, we also have like Gemini, who are the Winklevoss twins. So there's some weird things going on over there. I know Genesis Earn, which is like a sister company or an extension of Gemini or something like that. They're currently going through some issues, and people wouldn't expect that from the Winklevoss twins. So we just don't know. I think Coinbase are going to be okay, but it doesn't really matter. Still, people should withdraw their funds as soon as possible.
Well, yeah, you're right. And I think we have seen some on-chain data showing that very, very large removals of Bitcoin from exchanges,
Yeah.
like, where the amount of exchange on my Bitcoin on exchange is like rapidly decreasing. Now, what this whole situation is really making me think about is the whole proof of work versus proof of stake. And you are a Bitcoin maxi, proof of work all the way, correct?
I mean, I don't really like the term Bitcoin maxi. I prefer the term freedom maximalist. And which means that I believe in decentralization. I think proof of work is superior to proof of stake. But I find the word Bitcoin maxi just kind of strange, honestly. I do. I don't know why. But yeah, I'm proof of work over proof of stake.
Yeah, and I think I agree. Just the last couple of weeks, seeing the vulnerabilities of proof of stake blockchains and the way that they can be manipulated. Now,
yeah,
what I want to ask you about next, Layah, is so the year is 2030. What is the world reserve currency, and do you own anything? And is Layah happy?
Layah will be happy because Layah is working very hard to make sure that she is immune from all the rubbish that's coming. The world reserve currency. So what year are we now? We're 2022 going to 2023. That gives us 7 years. 7 years. I think the US dollar will still be the world reserve currency in 7 years' time. I'd be more likely to say otherwise if we were talking more like 15, 20 years into the future. 7 years, yeah, I think Bitcoin's going to be the US dollar is still going to be the world's reserve currency. I think we're going to see the elimination of the middle class really badly. I think the poor are going to get poorer and the rich are going to get richer. And I think those that understand what is happening are going to have an advantage. And what that means is it means getting online, making money from anywhere in the world, being sovereign really of your assets, your time, your location, yourself, your physical self. If you're able to do that, then I think you're going to be fine and you're going to be able to survive the 2030 agenda. I think we will have some form of central bank digital currency at that point for sure. And again, it's going to be programmable. I don't know. I'd like to think that not all countries and not all jurisdictions are going to implement it, but I don't think that's somehow possible. I genuinely do think we are moving into a authoritarian dystopian future. And you can be immune to it as long as you're, making money online, holding Bitcoin and things like that. I think the more tyrannical the world becomes, the more obvious the case for Bitcoin becomes. And so I do believe that more people will be holding Bitcoin at that point. Even conservatives are starting to understand the value proposition of Bitcoin just because they're seeing what happened over the last 2-3 years. They're seeing, this central bank digital currencies being ushered in, PayPal closing accounts and fining people for supposed misinformation. So all of this stuff, I think, makes the value proposition for Bitcoin just so powerful. So yeah, 2030 is going to be, it's going to look very different from how it looks now. And I think those who are aware right now will be fine.
Yeah, and just it's a new concept for people, censorship resistant money, unconfiscatable money. These are new concepts, but I think once people grasp them, now what I would want to know what you think is, we've seen what's going on in El Salvador with their Bitcoin experiment, and we've seen, Tesla add Bitcoin to its balance sheets. Do you think, in the next year or so, we could see more publicly traded companies add Bitcoin to its balance sheet? And could we see more nation states adopt a Bitcoin standard?
Yeah, I'm just looking at my phone right now, actually, because some news has come in about El Salvador, which is
Volcano bonds.
No, President Bukele orders the establishment of El Salvador's national Bitcoin office to do something. I don't know. I can't see, but they're clearly moving forward with everything that they're doing Bitcoin related. So yeah, I definitely think more countries will be adopting Bitcoin. I think what you'll find is it will be the third world countries adopting Bitcoin, because Bitcoin becomes like this last option. It's like the savior, the same way crypto is for a lot of people. If you look at the kind of people that are in crypto, maybe not so much now, but people who've been in it for at least the last 5-6 years, the crypto industry is very much full of people who needed an opportunity. That's what it's very much involved of. And so I think the same thing will be with countries who, are always being screwed over by the IMF, by the US, world banks, will be looking to Bitcoin as a way to circumvent all of that. The US dollar is clearly on the decline massively, the purchasing power of it, with inflation and everything like that. And so, yeah, definitely, I think more countries will be adopting it. But it's going to be very slow and it's going to take time. And, somebody, I think maybe El Salvador will be, I mean, it's still an experiment, but, we'll have laid the groundwork and we'll have laid out the blueprint for how you can do it and how you can get into it in a bull market, but still survive in a bear market. So yeah, we'll have to see. I'm interested to see how it goes. I don't know how it's going to go, but we'll have to see. I also think Dubai is going to be a really interesting one, because Dubai is very they're sort of leading the way when it comes to crypto regulation. They've sort of opened the doors for crypto companies. I know Binance is very established in Dubai. So that's going to be interesting as well. Like, are we expecting Dubai to come out with a coin? I think they might have a coin. I don't know. But then who's going to own that coin? Is it going to be decentralized? Like, we just don't know what's going to happen. But yeah, you need to brace yourselves and prepare accordingly.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Layah, Harvard even put out a study that, that the Fed should hold Bitcoin on its balance sheet as a way to against sanctions. So not just as a hedge against inflation, as a way to protect against sanctions from other nations. So I thought that was interesting, like you said, about the third world countries. But Layah, I know we're running out of time. Tell my audience where they can find you.
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me everywhere. I am on Twitter, I am on YouTube, I'm on Instagram. And if you look me up on Instagram, there's a lot of fake accounts. So just the best way to find me is to write Layah Heilpern, no space. I'm on TikTok. I have a book which you can check out. It's on Amazon called Undressing Bitcoin. There we go. Kevin's got it. And I'm on TikTok, if I mentioned that, I can't remember. But yeah, I have a podcast, and I'm always just going to be here pushing for freedom and truth. Yeah.
Well, Layah Heilpern, thank you so much for joining us. What an awesome episode. Y'all make sure to give her a follow, okay? Y'all, I'm Classic Kev. This is Layah Heilpern. We're out, y'all. Peace.